This week, I'll be checking out the Absolute Edition of The Dark Knight 3, The Master Race. What is going on, guys? I hope all of you are well and look forward to winding down for the holidays. I've been feeling a little under the weather this week and have a pretty bad cold, so apologies in advance if this voiceover sounds a bit off. I know this year on the channel there have been a ton of Batman-centric reviews, and believe me, I've been suffering a lot from Batman reading fatigue due to the amount of material that DC is putting out for the Bat family, which is honestly getting a bit overkill. My current line of thinking for 2020, maybe even an early New Year's resolution, is to probably cut down the amount of Bat family reading and cover other titles across the major publishers. Of course, there may be some exceptions next year, like Grant Morrison's Batman Volume 3 Omnibus, but overall, I hope to diversify the channel in 2020, covering other characters that I am enthusiastic about and I recommend reading for all you folks. That said, there are many reasons why I'm covering this title, so without further hesitation, let's get right into it. So I think one could not argue that The Dark Knight Returns is one of the best graphic novels ever written, but when DK3 dropped at the end of 2001, the consensus by critics and the reader base was that it was a complete train wreck, mainly as it lacked giving the reader the emotional response compared to the original, and not to mention how badly rushed the artwork was. I know art is subjective, but we are definitely talking Rob Liefeld WTF level here.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the f*** is that?
So when Dark Knight 3 was announced, we hoped that Miller could get the chance to redeem himself, even though he would have Brian Azzarello giving him a helping hand on the book. Azzarello, now famous in the mainstream media for all the unnecessary fuss for Batman Damned, is actually known for pushing the envelope, but not for the sake of controversy. Many media members accused him and Bermejo of doing this as a stunt, but in DK3, Azzarello basically did the same thing, yet the media did not create a fake outrage. It is quite intriguing how DC responded here, censoring Batman Damned just due to the media backlash and hence creating a double standard. If you are interested on how it all went down with Batman Damned at DC Corporate, the boys over at Batforce Radio have an exclusive interview with Lee Bermejo. I highly recommend checking them out on Spotify or SoundCloud and subscribing to their podcast while you're at it. But despite Miller's name being front and center on the book, a Newsarama article in 2015 actually received confirmation from Miller himself that it was actually all Azzarello and that he plans to respond in a fourth installment, which I assume he meant the Golden Child at the time. Coupled with superstar artists Andy Kubert and Klaus Janson for the main story, I want to emphasize that we really have a new creative team here for this third chapter, so the praise I'll be giving in this video is really to this creative team, whom they captured the spirit of Miller's original style. Before we dive into the Absolute Edition, I want to mention the other collected edition formats. The most common releases were the trade paperback and standard hardcover that collected all 9 issues, but if you wanted the Last Crusade one-shot, that was a separate oversized hardcover. When these issues were coming out in floppies, I picked up the oversized hardcover version for each issue. The last issue also came with a nice box set to put in all the hardcovers, which was definitely a nice touch from DC. This was the main reason why I skipped on getting the standard hardcover and trade paperback releases. Since DK3 was a huge release for DC, store variants were a big part of this as well. A lot of comic book stores were participating in this, and of course I could not resist picking up all these Gabriel Deodato variants from Bulletproof Comics. I also managed to hunt down some others on eBay as well. All these variants were also collected in an oversized hardcover, but I also held off picking this up, knowing that one day all this will be presented in the glorious massive pages in the extras section of an Absolute format. Starting off with the slipcase, we can see the stunning new artwork from Andy Kubert and Brad Anderson on both sides. Right off the bat, no pun intended, you can tell that even though you may think this is a Batman-centric book, you couldn't be further from the truth. Superman and his daughter Lara basically plays a co-starring role with Bruce and Carrie, hence the heavy emphasis on the pair on the slipcase itself. Taking the book out of the slipcase, we are greeted with a minimalistic piano black gloss cover by Andy Kubert and Klaus Janson from the very first issue. The spine also adheres to the original typeface used for the series, and it's laid out perfectly. Opening this Absolute edition, we are first greeted with Frank Miller and Alex Sinclair's variant cover from issue 5, along with the credits of the entire creative team. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I recall this was priced fairly high due to being the 1 in 100 incentive variant. Also, let's give credit to the DC Collected Editions and design team here, as they are always bringing the A game when it comes to the actual design and contents of each book that comes out. Moving on, we get a table of contents which depicts the correct reading order, but I would highly give them a pass if they didn't even include it, as the contents of this book is pretty straightforward. This Absolute Edition collects all 9 floppies along with its mini comic that came out with each issue. The hardcover release blew up the mini comic to the oversized format, and they also did the same here for the Absolute Edition, so we don't get any huge borders here. Also with the 9 issues, we get The Last Crusade, which serves as a prequel to The Dark Knight Returns. The art in this issue is by another superstar artist, John Romita Jr. I know he can be polarizing or hit and miss, but personally to me, he absolutely pulls off the dark and gritty street level panels in this one shot extremely well. Speaking more on the artwork, Andy Kubert and Klaus Janson panels are just a complete joy to look at, and we can see that the style is tweaked to be in the spirit of Miller's work from the original. For those who haven't read The Master Race, I'll refrain from giving a lot of spoilers by showing these tight shots of Kubert and Janssen's work. Do you think that this is the art team that should be on future installments for the Dark Knight universe? Let me know in the comments below on what your thoughts are. As mentioned earlier, the main story is complemented with a backup for every issue, but the pencils here is not by Kubert but Miller himself. In my opinion, this is where the art somewhat gets questionable, or in other words is not on the same level as Kubert. Again, I know this is subjective, but here is a prime example where my immediate reaction isn't so forgiving. This double page spread of Superman from the first backup story that centers around the Atom has several layers of WTF. That said, when you dive into the issue itself where Miller is given the sole credit for the pencils, it's pretty damn good. So definitely mixed feelings here. Now, seeing this double page splash is a perfect segue to talk about the build of the book. Unlike Absolute Swamp Thing, I don't have any problem with the cover warping, the binding, or any wavy paper. I noticed that Absolute DK3 was done at a different printing company in China, so this is probably the reason why I have yet to see any faults. There is a very tiny bit of gutter loss for the double page spreads, but nothing to worry about here, as the eye totally opens up when traversing through the book. As we move to the extras section, the $125 recommended retail price is completely justified, as they didn't skip out on the cover gallery. We totally get full page spreads of every cover for all the exclusive store variants as well as the incentives. The unused cover concepts only seem to get the downgrade here by showing multiple covers per page. If you're a major fan of the cover art, the extras gallery in this absolute format is worth it alone. I couldn't recommend this highly enough. As for my personal top covers, I know I am a bit biased, but the Gabriel Dell'Otto Bulletproof exclusive ones are no doubt my favorites, specifically issue 6 where Bruce is putting the beat down on Clark. In addition to the cover gallery, we get some pencils from John Romita Jr. from The Last Crusade, as well as a sketchbook from Andy Kubert. As for what's next in the Dark Knight Returns universe, we coincidentally get a prestige 48-page one-shot titled The Golden Child, written by Miller himself and artwork from superstar Raphael Grandpa. At the time of making this video, this will be coming out next week on December 11th, which I'm truly looking forward to, and I honestly love this so much. For my final thoughts, I can say that without a doubt, rereading this for a second time for the 9 issues was definitely a much better experience than reading it when each issue dropped. Despite the last 2 Frank Miller Batman stories being very disappointing, the 3rd chapter in this universe is definitely up there with other top Batman and even Superman story arcs that have dropped in the past decade, mainly all due to Azzarello. Without spoiling, I can definitely say that there are great moments in this book where we get true father-daughter bonding moments between Bruce and Carrie, along with the sense of hope that Clark brings to the world and his daughter. More importantly, the dynamic between Bruce and Clark feels just right here, and would actually like to see an Azzarello Batman Superman ongoing in the DK universe. He just totally nails it. Overall, I highly recommend picking this up from your local comic book store, and if you own the Absolute Dark Knight edition, this will complement it nicely. I know the completists in you will want this. If you plan already have picked this up, I'm quite interested to hear your thoughts whether this is a double, triple or even quad dip. Many thanks again for all the love as usual, and if you have any feedback or questions, feel free to put a comment down below or DM me on Instagram and Twitter. I love it when you all send me news and even better comic related memes. Well guys, that's it for me. I hope you liked this overview of Absolute DK3. If you did, hit that like button down below, but if you didn't, just smack that button twice. This is Alex and I'll see you in the next video.